Hello everybody, welcome to Deluxe Collectibles, and today I'm going to be doing my reaction and review for Amphibia Season 2, Episode 2, The Ballad of Hopediah Plantar, and then Anne Hunter. So if you would like to see my reaction to both of these episodes, then be sure to head down to the description below, where you'll find a link leading you over to Google Photos, where you'll be able to view that full uncut reaction, and then once you've seen the episode, you can feel free to come back over here to YouTube to watch my full review for both episodes and hear my thoughts, and that's what we're going to get into now. So if you haven't seen the episode, I would advise you check it out first, because this will be spoiler filled, and let's get into it. So the first episode is The Ballad of Hopediah Plantar, and I also have my laptop here as well and some notes that I wrote down so that I don't forget any details from the episode, because I like to go through the episode basically and kind of go in depth on my thoughts about each part of it. So this episode basically begins with Sprig, and like all of the characters of course, but Sprig starts playing like a song on his fiddle basically, because Anne pulls up a photo and it basically brings back a memory kind of, and Sprig kind of sings about it for a bit, and it winds up kind of embarrassing Hot Pop, because it basically says that all he did in this story was basically hide and cower, and that basically kind of sets up the whole sort of premise for the episode, that Hopediah kind of wants to prove himself, and the chance does arise for him, which we will discuss later on. So they're basically going on their journey, continuing from what we saw in the previous episode, and then we see them come across a town basically called Biddyburg, and this is home to the Biddies, and it's basically, Hot Pop says, it's just a small average town, and then when you see it, it's literally a small town, as Anne says, and it's pretty crazy. The Biddies are very, very cute, and I love it. Anne basically lifts up one of their houses, like lifts the roof right off, and they're just kind of, they look a little scared, but then she goes like, yeehaw, and then they're just basically like, okay, yeah, she seems pretty trustworthy, I would say, and they all just kind of cheer for her basically without even knowing anything about her. And then this character shows up, and he's basically from this gang called the Hasselback Gang, and his name's Judd Rowe, and he's coming to collect basically his taxes. There's his money that he needs, and one of the people, one of the citizens of Biddyburg, is basically like, sorry, I can't give you the money, my son's sick, and I need the money to pay for basically his health care, and basically the guy's like, nah, I don't care about your problems, I just want your money. And then he basically shakes the money off of him like a school bully would, and it's just really mean, honestly. It's just downright evil. But Hopediah basically steps up with, as I said at the beginning of the episode, kind of setting up that he kind of wants to prove himself, and he winds up actually running this guy Judd Rowe out of town. Now honestly, I didn't expect this at first. I thought that he was probably gonna get beat, but he runs him out at first, and it kind of sets up that this guy's gonna come back with maybe a little bit more firepower with him, or the Hasselback Gang, I suppose. So he gets thrown out basically by Hopediah, and then Hopediah just gets praised by everybody in this town, and they are just like, they're fanning him, they're listening to his story of how he beat taxpayers basically, or tax collectors I suppose it was, but he's talking about that, how he beat them, and then on one of the towers from the previous like start of the episode, he kind of tells that story, but in a bit of a distorted manner, where he's portrayed as more of the hero, other than Anne, who was the true one who basically saved them. So he does that, tells them all this story. They're basically now really looking up to him. The main one, the son who's sick, is named, I have his name somewhere on my notes. It's actually Bailey. There we go. My notes are a little bit of a mess, but yeah, Bailey basically praises him, and all of the town does as well. But then this gang, the Hasselback Gang, shows back up, and they're basically just the toughest group of individuals that you could see, and they have their Mama Hasselback, who basically leads them, and I love her tattoos. One of them says like Mama knows best, and then one of them says like eat your vegetables, and I'm like, yeah, those seem like motherly tattoos. And she has like a roller, basically, that you would roll out like dough or something, and she just kind of beats Hopediah with it, like just hits him on the head, because he tries to be intimidating against them and tries to run them out, but that obviously does not work. I mean, this mama is not gonna allow Hopediah to do much, and she basically just sits down and kind of takes it, but obviously it doesn't do much, and it's really funny that Hopediah basically just gives up, and he just kind of looks at Bailey and is basically like, it's true, Bailey, it's true, I can't do anything. It's like heroes don't exist, basically, is what Bailey is asking, and Hop Pop basically agrees, and then it's really funny, they just literally leave the town, and I was like, oh, this could be a very dark ending to the episode, let's be honest. Maybe it's like a life lesson, like you can't always win, even when it's against bad people, but, you know, Hopediah isn't gonna take that lying down, and he actually breaks Sprig's fiddle as well, because Sprig starts playing a little song about what happened, and it's really funny, because Hopediah's like, yeah, you're right, nobody's gonna write a story about me or sing a song about me. And Sprig's like, well, now that you smashed my fiddle, nobody is. And I thought that was really funny. If you watch the episode and the reaction, I'm sure it was funnier actually watching it than me telling you, which reason to watch the reaction, I'm sure you might have. But basically Hopediah is feeling down, and then they go back to the town, and they go to basically take down this Hasselback gang, and they wind up using a bit of a trick here. Now, I thought this was really funny how Hopediah basically just uses his tongue as a lasso, like a classic cowboy, and I thought that was really cool. This episode reminds me of the SpongeBob episode with Dead-Eyed Plankton. It completely reminded me of that, and I liked that episode. I thought it was pretty funny, a cool, like, sort of Western-themed episode, and I thought they really nailed the Western vibe as well within this episode. I thought they did a really good job of capturing that. So basically, they create a bit of a hoax here where Hopediah goes in, and he basically just starts trashing this Hasselback gang with just his tongue. He keeps smacking them in the face, but then we get to see that Sprig is using his, I keep wanting to say a catapult, a slingshot, that's it. I'm thinking of the bigger, like, catapult. But he uses his slingshot to shoot stones down at them and basically knock them out. So it looks like Hopediah is doing it, but he's really not. And the mama basically catches onto this, and she catches one of the stones, and then just starts basically, they all recover basically the Hasselback gang, and they seem to be really intimidating Hop Pop, but he kind of remembers what Anne was saying about you kind of have to just inspire hope in these people basically and kind of be your own hero here. And he winds up kind of taking just the brunt of their abuse and just gets knocked right out by Mama Hasselback. So it's kind of like in order to win, you have to lose. It's something like that. I'm sure there's some sort of lesson in there. But basically, Hop Pop winds up getting his butt kicked, or his face kicked more so by her tongue. But then we find out that these biddies in Biddysburg actually wind up having a bit of a psychotic side to them, you could say. Their eyes turn red, their teeth get all sharp, and they just go off on this Hasselback gang. I mean, they just annihilate them. I mean, at one point, one of them, like, just pops out of one of their shirts, and I'm just like, wow, they're like eating these people. And I was like, okay, that's a little dark, but you know what? It's fine. The Hasselback gang kind of deserves that, but then Hop Pop's basically like, we gotta get out of here. These people are like crazy. But you see Bailey come over, and he calms down, of course, and he's just kind of saying like, hey, you said like you gotta kind of be your own hero, and since you kind of weren't being the hero, I figured we gotta step up and do it for you since you couldn't protect yourself, or really protect, yeah, he just couldn't protect himself, honestly. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But yeah, he just couldn't protect himself, so they decided to do it for him. And we get to see when they're leaving the town, it's like on fire and everything. And I'm like, wow, those people are just gonna destroy this gang by by any means whatsoever. They're just gonna burn down their whole town, basically. And that's kind of how the episode concludes itself, basically. We get to see them leaving and Spriggs kind of playing another psalm, which is finally one representing Hop Pop in a better light. And then we actually get to see the robot from the previous episode show up at the end, and it seems to be walking and kind of following them. So that was kind of cool. I wasn't sure if they were going to address that robot was following them immediately, but it seems like they are. So I'll be very interested to see when that confrontation occurs between them. And then the next episode, now we're moving on to Ann Hunter. So basically now they've stopped and they're basically just taking down camp, and Hop Pop cooks them a stick, a very hearty meal, I could say. So they figure that they actually have to hunt for their food like nature intended, basically. And it was kind of funny, you got to see Polly pull out like a cookie from her bow and just eat that, or a biscuit. She calls it a biscuit later in the episode, but she pulls that out and eats some of that. And then we get to see Anne kind of imagine herself hunting like a turkey or like a chicken breast, I suppose. It's probably more so a turkey, and she's hunting it basically. It kind of reminded me of like Katniss Everdeen from Hunger Games, and I thought that was really funny. And then she comes back and kind of feeds it to them, and she also has Cool Ranch as well, because you can definitely find that in a forest in the wilderness. And of course that's just her imagining it, but I thought it was pretty funny. And then we get to see basically, so they wind up starting to go on the hunt, and Spriggs kind of teaching Anne their ways of hunting, and basically that is just eating dirt and dancing. And of course that's how anybody would hunt, I suppose. That's probably how cavemen did it, I would assume. And Spriggs basically eating the mud and telling her you gotta kind of taste it to kind of figure out where the prey is. And I love this. The actual things that they're hunting are called grubbles, and they are basically eclairs, which are like a type of donut basically with cream. And I love it. There's like all different flavors. They have different types of icing on them of different colors. It's fantastic. They're so cute as well. At one point, Anne says, I don't even think these things have a brain. And then they just let out the cutest little noise. And they just look, they look amazing. Like, I couldn't eat these things. Next time I eat an eclair, it's gonna be tough, because I'm gonna think of grubbles, and now you might as well. But Spriggs starts doing a dance basically to kind of lure them out so that they can kind of capture them basically. And the dance is pretty hilarious, to say the least. Sprig at one point just starts bashing his head into the ground, and you know, that's how I dance, so I mean, it didn't come off as too much of a surprise to me. But he's trying to convince Anne to kind of do the dances, kind of do the rituals, but she's not really buying it. She's saying like, why don't I just hunt with like a stick basically? And it gets to the point where she's about to like, it looks like maybe either smack the grubbles or impale them with a stick, but luckily she stops, and she goes back to the camp and sees that Bessie is all left on her own, and there's this thing called a Scorpuleo, and it is like the craziest looking thing. It's supposed to be half scorpion, half lion, and it's insane. So it's basically captured Hop Pop, Polly, and Sprig, and now it's kind of taken them, so Anne basically has to become Ann Hunter, hence the name of the episode. And she's like, I can do this, and then like 2 seconds later she's like, I cannot do this. And I was like, you know what, that is actually pretty relatable, maybe in a sad way, but I feel like I've had those moments where I'm like, I can definitely do this, and then I'm like, nope, I probably can't. It's like when you're at the beginning of a test, very relatable moment. You're just looking at the first page, you're like, I can do this, I can write my name, then you turn the page and you're like, yeah, no, I can't do this. I am done. I have given up. So basically that's what happens there. I don't know if that's relatable. Let me know if it is in the comment section. But then we get to see Anne basically have a hallucination of Sprig appear to her, and it's just Sprig's head. And he kind of guides her. It almost reminded me, like, of course, like Yoda's actually there, but it kind of reminded me of, like, Yoda kind of training Luke basically. So Sprig's kind of teaching her the ways of kind of hunting, because she doesn't remember when he initially taught them to her. And she picks up the dirt and like tastes it, and she's like, this isn't working. And then she's like, wait, and then she like fully eats it, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess in the previous episode, she ate ice cream with flies in it, so she's just like, nothing is off limits here. So she eats that, and then she's like, oh, I can taste like Polly's biscuit. So they start following the trail, basically. A psalm ensues, which is pretty great. I really enjoyed that. It was pretty funny. The last line is like, because if you don't listen to Sprig, your family will die. And I was like, yeah, that's honestly pretty true. If you don't listen to this hallucination, your whole family is doomed. And then we get to see basically the hideout for this Scorpio, and there's a bunch of skeletons of like frogs, I assume, and it's pretty morbid, to be honest. So Anne winds up digging a trap, and at one point she's like, can you give me a hand? And then Sprig's like, let me you think about what you just said for a second. And then she's like, oh yeah. And then basically she's digging it, she's setting a trap for them, and then she winds up going out, and they're basically about to get attacked, and she tries to draw its attention over with the dance, but you can tell she's not really into the dance. She's like, there isn't music, there's not a dance floor, it's like not the environment that you would traditionally dance in. But then she winds up really getting into it because she listens, and I didn't even think about this. It's so smart. Like, the writing in this show is fantastic, and normally when they put dances or songs in shows, sometimes it can feel a little bit out of place. But this was such a great way of integrating it into it. I thought that that was just fantastic. And she listens to nature, and it's creating basically the music for her. And I was like, that is just fantastic. That was amazing. And she really gets into the dance and basically just is able to attract this Scorpio to her. At one point, she's also bashing her head into a tree like a woodpecker. And you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. There are some great faces as well. I know I talked about the faces in the previous episode of how great they are at drawing these characters, and there's some with Sprig that are just absolutely amazing. I love them so much. And the Scorpio gets attracted over to Anne basically, then she throws some dirt in its eyes, kind of pisses it off, but it jumps over Anne or straight into the trap, and then they wind up being able to escape. Basically, they got to get out of there as quick as they can, and they get back to Bessie, and then Anne is basically she's like, yeah, we did it, or yeah, I was able to do it, and then she kind of looks off to like where Sprig's floating head is, and the rest of the family is just like, okay, I think Anne has officially lost it. So we get to see that basically concludes the episode, and then we get to see the robot once again, who now we can see the front of it, and we see it open up for a second, so I'm very curious if someone's inside of this robot. There's a lot of mystery surrounding this thing, which I absolutely love. I love it when they do something overarching like that, and I think it's fantastic the way they're kind of slowly teasing it, not rushing it or anything. So I'm very interested to see if someone's operating this robot, or what it's doing, or what it's after. So I'll be interested to see where that winds up going. And then that concludes the episode. Now that was just, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed this episode. There was one part I forgot to mention in the first episode, the Ballad of Hopediah Plantar, where Anne says like juicing up the details, because Hop Pop, when he's telling his story, he's kind of juicing up everything he's saying, and she says, yeah, it's just like back home when they do marketing. And I was like, okay, pretty solid joke there, pretty accurate. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. But I think I've covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I know it's quite a long review, but I like to go in depth with these, really share my thoughts on the episode. I honestly thought they really nailed this episode. If I had to compare it to the first episode, I might have preferred that one a little bit more, but I did like this. I like the Western setting. I'm sure for people who are really into Western films would have really enjoyed that as well. And just the second episode as well was really great. And Hunter, I thought that was really well done. It was just overall great. This season is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. I love the overarching mystery with the robot that's following them. Very curious to find out what happens with that. But let me know all of your thoughts on the episode down below. Let me know your score for the episode. What are your thoughts on the season thus far? And are you excited for future episodes as well? And what do you think is like, what are your theories about this robot that's following them? For once, I'm actually doing a series when it's like kind of up to date, at least hopefully I can stay up to date with it. And so now we can kind of figure out the mystery together. So let me know down below all of your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this reaction and review. If you enjoyed, please leave a like down below and also subscribe for future videos as well. I would really appreciate the support, so thank you so much. I will see you all next time, and always remember, keep on collecting.